Alright, before this video even gets started, I do want to say that I might have sort of kind of cheated and found out what the thing in the mines was, and found out that it was the glass casket or coffin, whatever you want to call it, of Snow White from the very beginning of the show. So that pretty much just completely confirms, not my theory, but that Regina is obviously, like, I still feel like maybe she has changed over time, but she remembers, like, literally everything. I thought maybe that the curse had affected her in some way, but no, she remembers everything, including this glass coffin. So, yeah, in case you were kind of wondering why I didn't know what that was, that's why. We only really see it at the very beginning of the show, and the design just didn't really click for me. But anyway, let's get started with, this episode. So, Meleena, go ahead and roll the intro. Hello all my Kenvians, and welcome to episode 6 of Discovering Once Upon a Time. And today the episode that I'm going to be reacting to and reviewing is The Shepherd. And I remember last time, like, I couldn't really get much from the title exactly. That still small voice is like, part of me thought that maybe it was Jiminy Cricket, but I couldn't really tell for sure. But with this one, The Shepherd, I honestly don't know. Like, again, my best guess is that maybe it has to do with, like, the boy who cried wolf, from Aesop's Fables. That's really all I got. So, yeah, with no more delay, I cannot remember words right now, let's get started with episode 6, The Shepherd. Gold. Ooh, a dragon. Ooh, this could be cool. So is Regina being, like, legitimately compassionate or manipulative?
The forest is too big, too important to make right up. Just because I was easily able to kill this brute doesn't mean...
What? What?
The dragon's lair is through there. You stay here. I'll be back.
I'm sure you will be. Well, that's like 6 down. Oh, pretty sure we're up to 7 now. Toasty feet!
In our kingdom, you will marry this girl, or I will kill you. I will kill your mother. I will turn that farm to ash. Do you understand me?
Well, this explains a lot of the animosity between the prince and his dad.
Silence of wisdom. Follow it.
Oh god, those things. Ugh.
True love follows this ring wherever it goes, my son. I had it with your father.
Oh, that's Snow's ring.
Now you will have it.
Or what becomes Snow's ring.
And I'll know.
You're on the road to true love.
And shortly thereafter, they run into Snow White. Oh, are they actually going to show that scene?
How do you do that?
By never knowing what's expected. Keeps life interesting. Can I buy you a drink?
By me too.
Interesting. Oh, so that's how they end the episode. Okay. Oh my. Well, okay, give me just a moment to gather my thoughts, and I will be with you in just a moment. Alright, so that was The Shepherd, and this episode left me feeling very strange. It's, I will say this, I thought it was a good episode. I found a lot about it really intriguing, especially finding out more about James, his past life, and everything. Just going so much deeper into this information about who he really is. But at the same time, I mean, there were some great moments, but for some reason it didn't feel... I feel like I was maybe more dramatically involved, but there wasn't anything like super exciting going on most of the time. So, I don't know if maybe it just feels weird because I didn't feel as enthusiastic about the episode, but again, I did find it to be a good one, especially story-wise. But let's get into my overall thoughts, starting with some of my favorite parts. And I have a lot of these listed down, so I might actually skip some of them / combine some of them. Because even though I took those few minutes, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have everything in order. I don't know why I just did that. Anyway. Okay, so first of all, I found the focus on David / James to be just a phenomenal part of this episode. Because, I mean, we focused on a lot of the different characters, and, I mean, James / David has been there, but it's pretty much always been much more about, like, Snow White, Cinderella in the past, and the other characters. But this is the first time where we really get, again, a primary focus on James / Prince Charming. So I just really like that, and the fact that we finally, again, like I was saying earlier, the fact that we finally got to delve deeper into his past, of who he really is, at least back in the Land of Magic. The second part is just one of my favorite parts, and I guess it was kind of ruined by a later part of the episode, but the fact that David he was just so clearly in love with Mary / really Snow. And obviously that was because the curse, as Henry said, hadn't settled in at that point. Which, that actually makes me think of an annoyance that I might have. I'll try and remember that when I do get down to those, but, I mean, just the portrayal is just, it's so, like, schoolboy love. It's just, this very... the love that he was portraying to Mary, and just, admittedly a bit possibly obsessive, but just the feelings he was showing, and he still does have, before he regained his memories. I mean, those were just, it was a sign that, like, he's truly in love. He truly loves Mary, even though he doesn't know her, but he knows Snow White. He just can't remember that, and I guess now doesn't at all. But, anyway, my next favorite part of this episode was King Midas. I mean, I feel like maybe the name had been brought up previously in one of the episodes. I could be wrong. It might have actually been in the episode where we see Snow White when she's still a thief before her and the prince got together. But just seeing King Midas, I thought was, a pretty interesting overall aspect of the episode. And, yeah, just the fact that, I mean, it didn't really dawn on me who he was, again, until they took the gauntlet off and his hand was glowing. But even then I was thinking, so is this like a curse from the dragon? Oh no, it turns things to gold because he's King Midas, obviously. So yeah, I really liked that part, and I mean, I don't know that we'll see much more of him, but unless he died in the Land of Magic, I assume he might appear eventually down the line through this show. Maybe. No idea. But that actually brings me to my next favorite part of this episode, and that was the original prince just dies. And I mean, I'm sure as you can see by my reaction, I didn't see that coming at all. I mean, I do kind of wish we had gotten to know a little bit more about, like, that prince, and maybe we will. I don't know. But just the fact that the prince went down like that, well, or more like, I found that incredible and, well, incredibly surprising. And then the reveal that the prince had a twin brother, I mean, just taking this full soap opera. But, and the twin brother ended up being James, the titular shepherd. So, yeah, just that whole deal I found just crazy. Absolutely crazy. But again, even though, I mean, there's not much of his story to tell, I would like to know more about the original prince, the not James prince. But yeah, I'm sure that may never happen, but just that aspect of this episode just blew me away. Well, I'll just ask this because I probably won't remember later, but who in the heck was that brute? Like the evil guy that the original prince was fighting and then was supposedly dead, but then shoved a spear through the prince's chest. It's like, where did that come from? Is it just like some random warrior that they put up against the prince, or someone that King Midas brought with him? I found that really strange, I guess you could say. But moving on from there, my fifth favorite part of this episode was finding out just a rather complex network, really, of deals with old Rumpelstiltskin, obviously. Because the prince himself was a deal with Rumpelstiltskin. I like to call him Rumpy. So the prince was brought to the king through a deal with Rumpy. And Rumpy made a deal with James' mother, who provided, some prosperity, however temporary it may have been, to the farm on which James' mother and father tended, and he did at the time. So, I mean, Rumpy is just, he has his hands in so many things throughout the kingdom. I mean, obviously, he owns the town as far as Storybrooke, Maine goes, but in the Land with Magic, I'm intrigued to find out just how far it reaches with him. Like, is he kind of responsible for everything? Like, possibly even this lost love of Regina / the Evil Queens that she is clearly never letting go of. But yeah, I don't know, Rumpy, I keep stuttering it, but Rumpy just has his fingers in everything, and I really want to find out how deep that goes in just everything with this show. Moving on from there, my sixth favorite part of this episode, again, going back to the focus on David / James, is just he becomes the Dragon Slayer. And I mean, I kind of expected at least a few of the knights to die when they went up against the dragon. But yeah, pretty much all except for one bit the dust. Like the one that was kind of the biggest jerk to James, but obviously it's like, James is just some random kid that looks like, the former prince, so it's understandable he would be kind of a jerk, but at the same time, just, the fact that he became the Dragon Slayer, and he actually used the skills that he had learned as a shepherd, like trapping the sheep, he used that to trap the dragon, and that gave him the clear opening to kill the dragon. I found that to be a really well done sequence, and just it was properly shown, because again, we saw him earlier in the episode herding in the sheep. Now you could say it's a bit of a stretch to be able to do that to a dragon, but still, it's a fairy tale. So there you go. Moving on from there, my 7th favorite part of this episode, despite how it ended, is David and Mary. I as I've said in previous episodes, I love their relationship. I really do want to see how it progresses, how it changes over time. And I'll be touching on that again a little bit later. That is something I wrote down. So that's all I'll touch on that. My next favorite part of this episode was finding out what really is at the core of that animosity between the king and James / his father / not really his father, both in the land without magic, or the world without magic, and back in the world with magic. It's really hard for me to keep that straight because I keep wanting to say fairy tale land, but I know that some people might get a little bit frustrated at me when I say that. But just, I mean, he's not at all the father of James. Like, James has no real emotional connection with the man at all. At all. That does raise the question as to where David's younger brother comes from in the end. The Prince Charming that marries Cinderella. I'll dwell on that another time so as not to bore you, but yeah, that raises a lot of questions, but I love that they, I mean, very simply explained all that animosity and why James didn't particularly care for the king. And sort of gives an explanation, I guess, in a way, of why they don't get along in the real world. But moving on from there, my 9th favorite part, or no wait, have they even interacted in the real world? I don't remember. I might have been getting a little bit ahead of myself. So yeah, at least back in the land with the land of magic, or the world of magic, or whatever it's called. They had that animosity. But moving on, because I'm tripping over my own thoughts here. My next favorite part of this episode was when Emma caught the sheriff climbing out of the window at Regina's. And I gotta say, one, dude, that's a really stupid move, even though, you know, you're a character in a show and it was scripted. But, I mean, when the kid is home? Really, man? That's low. That is low. And, I mean, clearly, or at least it seemed that Emma was, you know, kind of getting some feelings for the sheriff. I mean, they weren't completely blatant, but it was clear that she liked him and that she was coming to trust him. And who knows, maybe a relationship, or at least in her mind, a relationship of sorts could have evolved from that. But now she just has so many doubts. Like, she doesn't know whether to believe that the sheriff brought her on without, you know, or if the sheriff brought her on at Regina's demand or not, and whether or not she can actually trust him, and just so many other things. And just the way that Emma, you know, you could see it in her face, just like, you know, all that trust was just gone. But yeah, so yeah, that was a very interesting moment there at the end. So yeah, but anyway, moving on from there, my next favorite part of this episode was just that quick revisit to the past. And by the past, I mean a previous episode, which is basically right at the very beginning of where we find out that Snow White was a thief at the time. So yeah, it put all those little puzzle pieces together for, you know, back when they were in the land of magic. And I just love that. I love the way they touched on that. And that brings us to my favorite. I don't know if saying it's a favorite part is right, but I mean, at the end it's like, Mary and Dr. Whale? Really? And I don't know what to think about that guy. Because, on one hand, earlier in the episode, he's clearly kind of a douche. Or possibly even just a huge douche, I don't know. And then, I mean, at the end, he does seem to show, at least some compassion toward her. But then, of course, because of what Mary's just gone through, whether he knows it or not, Dr. Whale is kind of taking advantage of what has happened. And, or I don't know, maybe Mary is, because, I mean, she's the one that said, I'll take 2 drinks. So, I don't know, that's just a very, very interesting, and I'm kind of worried / really looking forward to seeing what happens in the next episode to see what might come of that, if anything. But okay, those are all my favorite parts of this episode. I was trying to think of what the other issue I had might be, but I can't really think of it. So I only have one annoyance for this episode. If I can think of what the other one was when I go back through this, I might put it in text here or something, I don't know. But the annoyance I do have with this episode, it's one that spans not only this show, but other shows as well. Because, I mean, a lot of shows do this kind of thing. But why is it that in TV shows, and sometimes even movies, that the heroes never wear a helmet? Now, I get it, they gotta be, they gotta not have the helmet on so that, you can see who they are. But if they're gonna be going in to fight a dragon, you would think they would want a little bit more protection. I mean, given fire's gonna burn, no matter whether you just have chainmail on your head or a helmet. But still, and then, the prince, the one that they're supposed to try and keep alive, is up there. He doesn't even have chainmail on his head. He just has, nothing. He has armor. Clearly less armor than the others. And just no protection on his head. And so many shows do that in different contexts. Like, I know some people hate the show, but on The Big Bang Theory, when they go, to the paintball range, which they do on a few episodes, they're wearing goggles, and that's it. That's literally it. They're not wearing masks even when they run outside. And as someone who has played paintball, that's idiotic. Because there's a good chance you're going to get shot in the face. And it's going to hurt a lot. So I hate it when shows do that. Again, I know kind of why they do that, but in the end it just doesn't make logical sense, especially if we have a way of telling who is who. And in this case, we could tell who the prince was, even if he had a helmet on. So, yeah, that's just something that really bothers me. But again, it goes way outside of just this show. So those are all my favorites and annoyances of this episode. Please do let me know what yours might be down below. I'm sure you might be able to find some other annoyances, but that's really all that bothered me personally for this one. Now moving on, my quote of the episode is very simple, and I think it's probably one that really just... It made the biggest impact out of this entire episode. And it comes from David, just as he is getting ready to leave Mr. Gold's shop. And it's just 2 simple words. I remember. Because at that point, again, it's like I couldn't tell if maybe he was remembering some sort of connection to his past life in the land with magic, or if he remembered, remembered because the curse had set in. So yeah, just those 2 words had just such a huge impact on this entire episode, and possibly everything that is to come. So yeah, that's my favorite quote of the episode. Let me know what yours is, if you have one. Now moving on from there, I do have a question and a theory. And the question is, it's not related specifically to just this show. I guess it's sort of a not theological, but philosophical question, in a sense, maybe, I don't know. But the question is, is a person with amnesia a completely different person? Like, if they have no recollection of their past, or say someone just completely forgets all of their past memories and never gets them back, does that make them a completely different person? And if that's the case, even if there is still family, if there's still loved ones that know who that person is, but that person never regains their old memories, is it fair to say that that person is in the wrong if they fall in love with someone else, or if they just completely take a different path in life? I don't know, that's just, for me, that's just such a huge question that I don't have an answer for. I don't know that really anyone would have an answer for. But yeah, there you go, my big question of the day, I suppose. Is a person with amnesia a completely different person? I don't know. But that brings us to my theory sparked by this episode. And I'll be honest, I hope it doesn't come true, but I feel like we might be moving in that direction. And my theory is that Snow and Charming, or in this case, Mary and David, won't end up together. They just won't. That their characters will branch out. It's like they'll, I mean, unless they regain their old memories, I mean, that's entirely possible, but what if they don't end up together? I don't know, it's the thought of that kind of, it kind of rattles me, honestly, because, you know, there's always, it's like, I mean, it's always been Snow White and Prince Charming, so when they regain their memories, if they regain their memories, why wouldn't they be back together? I don't know. This show goes in a lot of different directions that I'm not expecting. But I'm definitely interested in finding out what is going to happen. And you'll get to see that with me in the next episode, which is called The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. And I'm pretty sure I have an idea of who that episode is going to be about. Well, not necessarily who, but the character, which would be the hunter / the huntsman that the Queen sends to kill Snow White. Who that person is, I have a guess, but I don't think it was ever fully revealed. My assumption is that it's the sheriff, or I guess that's like another theory of mine. I think I might have said that in a previous episode, actually, but I think the huntsman might be the sheriff, but I don't know for sure. That's just the best guess I can make, unless they introduce the huntsman and it's a completely different person from what we've seen. Or, I don't know, maybe just a character. I'm not assuming. I don't know. But, alright everyone, as always, thank you very much for joining me for this episode of Discovering Once Upon a Time. I hope you enjoyed the reaction, and I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on the episode as well. And, well, again, until next time for The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, I'm Papa Ken, and I'll see you next time. Later.